All right, and we are live. Hello, and welcome to Developer Insights. I am David. Justin.
And I'm Justin, now with my mic on.
That was clever. Wouldn't even write that in.
Yeah.
Together, we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Not only that, but we founded the company, so we've got that going for us too. We will be your hosts for this episode and every episode, and we should really change the script so that I don't have 2 lines in a row.
That's the 3rd time you've done that.
Today is, in fact, our 4th episode.
4th time you've done that. Right. Hopefully it's also not our last.
Why would it be our last?
Well, we could get canceled.
Why would we get canceled?
Well, for starters, we might run out of jokes about why we would get canceled.
I think we already have.
This one feels really low effort.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, well, that's probably for the best, but I think we're just going to have to revisit this next time.
We are here to answer your development and design questions, specifically questions about Idle Champions, but if you ask us about some of our other games, we will probably answer those too.
And of course, as per usual, if you don't ask any questions, you may have to suffer through one of Justin's one-man reenactments of, this time it's Star Wars The Force Awakens.
No. I'm not doing that one.
You
Not
haven't
worth
even
it.
seen that one.
I have seen that one. It's the 9th one I haven't seen. Anyway, while we're waiting for the first few questions to queue up, we may have a few updates. I'm not sure.
No, actually, we didn't queue up any updates, but we
Okay.
do have some questions from last time, and so we can start with those.
Sure.
All right.
So we actually have some updates from last time, it looks like. So last time, players were asking us a couple of questions, and we said we would get back to you. So now we are going to get back to you. So
So you better be here, because
so you better be. Hopefully you're here, the real bunny beast. Hopefully you're around this week, because you asked last week if we tracked how many people used scientific notation versus non-scientific notation, and if so, what are the numbers? And we went and looked that up. So Dave, what did we find out?
I mean, we found out that we didn't have a good way to estimate how many people we considered to be someone who may or may not have set the setting. Because every time a player joins the game, they get a setting set, like a default value. And so if you opened the game, played for 10 minutes, decided it wasn't your thing, you'd be in the list of people who were not using scientific notation. But we had some rough numbers, and we decided that we would do it based on as long as you had at least a reset, and then otherwise if you had like 25 or more resets. And so based on that, we came to it somewhere between about 11 and 50%.
Yeah, I think we can safely say that less than 50% of people with more than 25 resets use scientific notation, which was actually really surprising to me.
For being large or being small?
No, for being small, you would think that that more people would switch over to it, but
Well, maybe they just actually don't know that they
just
can
don't know that
turn
it's
it
there.
on.
So yeah, pro tip for the 50% of you that don't use scientific notation: there's scientific notation, and it makes it much easier to track the numbers once you get between like e to the 5 and 10,000
10,000
and whatever e to the 60 is, I think, is where we automatically switch over to that. We have another question here that came in last week that we said we would get back to them on. From Fredzilla asked, is there any way to turn off just the familiars attack sounds?
Or any plans to. And I
Yeah.
did promise that we would do that. And we have in fact done that. It is not out. It has not been pushed out to my knowledge, but it is in the current dev build, and very soon players will be able to do that. So if that is something that has been, so if you have sound on and that particular sound has been driving you nuts, you will now be able to turn it off. Well, not now, but soon, very soon.
Hashtag almost delivered.
All right. We got one here that you pulled forward, Justin, from someone here named David Samuel Auer.
Oh, I'm surprised you were able to pronounce that.
I know. It's the one and only time it'll happen this stream. And they ask, do Eldrum and Drow count
Yeah.
as elves? Spelling on that, but
Eladrin.
well, there
Drow.
we go. See,
Yes.
count as elves for Shaka's puzzle.
So I believe that they do. I believe Drow and Eladrin specifically also have the elf tag, in addition to the Eladrin or Drow tag that they have. So they would count as elves for the purposes of Shaka's puzzle. And I saw that one and it looked pretty easy, so I thought I'd pull it forward from last week.
Fair enough. All right, next one on the list there for you is from Agrios BR, and they are asking, is damage over time intended to be that bad? Or is it become something useful somewhere in the future? They point out that they are a beginner doing around level 200 adventures.
Yeah, so damage abilities that cause damage over time in monsters are actually really tough to balance because of the way that damage works exponentially in the game. So like if you'll see if you get a significant damage boost, it'll be like, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 10 times more damage. And so what happens there is you get attacks that either they tickle the monster or they kill the monster, and there's not a lot in between. There's not a lot of range in between those two. So what that means is damage over time abilities generally either will kill the monster in one tick or just 1 or 2 ticks, or they will take forever to kill the monster. And you can get into situations where you can see other cases, the other case being where it sort of kills the monster kind of quickly over time, but it's actually a very narrow range where that happens. So it's not that it's bad or intended to be bad, it's just that the range in which you can see the effect of it and see its effectiveness is actually quite limited. Yeah.
And I'd like to point out that there's actually, we didn't include the tickle attack in Champions.
There was a tickle attack at one point.
There was one in Crusaders.
Oh, in Crusaders, yeah. If you have no, if the enemy is invulnerable or you have no damage, I think it says it tickles them.
When you tickle them, when you click them with click damage.
Yeah.
All right. Next question pulled in from last week is from Jeff Infinity. See, all of these names were good.
You're doing well so far.
I can pronounce Jeff.
No new clips for next week. Darn.
And the question is, what are the use of attributes? Some feats increase them. Why?
Yeah, so for those of you who are newer in the game and haven't gotten to very many of the variants, attributes are primarily for locking out champions during variants. So what you'll find is there are variants where you can only use champions with a certain stat, like say strength 13 or higher. There's also some of those restrictions on patrons as well. And so some of the feats that increase attributes will allow you to use those champions on a given variant or with a given patron. In most cases, I think there might still be 1 or 2 feats that really don't do anything. But I think we've covered most of them at this point. And we will continue to do that as an interesting way to give the option to sacrifice a little bit of power for the ability to use a champion in a given patron or a variant. Let's see, we got another one from last week here. This one came in really early last week from the Real Bunny Beast again. Asked, why are the non-epic speed potions oriented/rotated differently from the other potions of the same rarity? Oh man. The epic potions are all oriented the same way. Literally unplayable.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to track down.
I threw this one in because it was cheeky, and also because I wanted to throw Adam under the bus.
We are gonna have to.
I assume he's not listening, but this is Adam, who was our lead artist on this game, and for whatever reason,
he got canned for not rotating all the potions the same way.
Oh man, we got in trouble for that joke last time, Justin. Anyway, the actual answer is that when Adam gets back to doing potions again, so he did a number of them were all done at one time, and then he came back and did additional ones later, and for whatever reason he likes to change it up, and that's it. That's the only reason. It's I don't even know why that he likes to do that, but it's like, well, if it went this way this time, next time it's going the other way. So it's just a little idiosyncrasy that Adam had and continues to do. Those aren't actually separate questions, Justin. Sorry.
They're not. That's why they're pushed together.
They're pushed together because they're from the same topic. But you can go ahead and.
I just want to caveat just for a sec. Our air conditioning in our office has stopped working, and so we used to call this the ice box because it got really cold in the streaming room. Now it's like a sauna, and if the camera goes out, or if I melt into a puddle or something like that, or if I'm drinking a lot of water during the stream, that's why. Anyway, more questions.
They got 8 to 12 weeks on that, so we're going to be waiting for a while.
It's going to be
I hope it's not summer
so
or something
enjoyable.
Like
So enjoyable. I'm glad, like you said, I'm glad we're not going into the hottest part of the year. Anyway, Let's see. Here's two questions, kind of linked together. Actually, they're basically
the
asking
same
the same
question.
thing.
That's right. Yeah.
From Maelstrom 7737 and Garwar. They're both asking, what are loot levels? I know there are item levels on gear. Are they the same thing? And Garwar asks, why use the term loot level when the term item level is already used in game?
Yeah, so we looked this up, and the answer is it is simply just an oversight. So loot levels and item levels are the same thing. I don't know why they can't be labeled consistently, so we will endeavor to change that so that they are the same thing, especially because item levels are coming up in our new multiplayer feature.
Spoilers.
And so they will make sure that those get made consistent with each other. Yeah, I think actually part of it is some of the keys in the data are from when we translated it over from Crusaders, and loot levels was a thing from Crusaders. So I think that's technically why that ended up in there. But item level is the key. Yeah, it's like sometimes we'll see heroes or champions interchanged with the word hero, and while champions are heroes, they're technically heroes in the code rather than champions. And so yeah, anyway, good thing that nomenclature works. People don't raise an eyebrow on that one. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's all of our questions that we pulled forward from last week. As always, if we don't get to your question today, and we probably won't because we've already got 20-something questions today and we haven't answered any. If we don't get to your question, we might pull it forward to next week. We try to pull 5 or 6 or 7 questions forward just in case, just so we have something to talk about at the beginning of the episode while you guys are asking us new questions. So yeah, do you want me to give you, here, I'll give you this one here. Q4.
Oh no.
This should be fun. Well, not fun. From Deathworm, with a 0 for the O. Hardcore. It says, I see you guys fix the chat again. What is going on there? What is going on with the chat, Dave?
I feel like there should have been some punctuation in there. It should have been, I see you guys fix the chat again.
We have been fixing it a lot lately.
Yeah, so there are two things that are going on there, and one of them is there is a long-running issue with that particular chat server that after a long enough period of time, for whatever reason, it gets into a stuck state, and it usually takes, well, I think previously it took about a week, maybe a little over a week before it would get into this stuck state, and then no one else could join the chat. And so obviously that's been something that we've been watching, and we've been knocking it over, or restarting it. Peter likes to say he's kicking the chat. And he ended up writing a script that kicks the chat every day so that it doesn't end up in a state where people can't connect. Of course, at the moment it kicks it, of course, you're going to end up being reconnected to it. So that's the issue, and it's gotten worse with more players. I think the issue shows its head after a certain number of connections have been established. Peter seems to think it's not giving up its ports, and so it's hitting the max port number and then stopping. Anyway, so I know it's on Peter's list. There's some new server tech that we're developing, and he wants to see if we can shift over to that, although I know it's sort of lower tier on his list because he's got lots of really other more pressing items. But we really like to see that something that doesn't need to have our attention diverted to it on a semi-regular basis. So that is what is going on with that.
Yeah. So I have gone through while you were giving that excellent answer, and I have highlighed many questions.
Well, you should have highlighted some for me too, right?
I did highlight one for you. Do you want me to ask you the one I highlighted for you?
No, we got this.
Okay.
We got lots of time for this. I mean, we're up to, we're going to 30 questions. At this rate, 14 minutes in. Oh, yep.
Maybe if we just talk more about how we will not have time to answer all the questions, we'll have more time to answer questions.
Get on with it. All right.
Get on with it.
Let's start with question 1. First question of the day was asked by Crongy. Crongy? 999. I thought it was a cron job, but anyway, and their question is, was the fast core designed specifically not to be mirrored horizontally? It really threw me when I hit level 15 and realized the static 100% multiplier in the top left was facing the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't think any of the cores have been 100% designed to like specifically be mirrored horizontally. I think I feel like even the basic core had a couple that were facing in different directions. But I mean, yeah, it's. I don't think it's intended to be mirrored exactly horizontally. So, yeah, the answer to that question is yes. It was specifically not designed or designed not to be mirrored horizontally. In that none of them are specifically designed to be horizontally or mirrored horizontally. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Okay. Next question is question 6. Or do we want to do question 5?
You can do 6.
All right,
we can come
6
back
it
to
is.
5.
This is from Ironuk. Hopefully that's correct. Is there any advantage to leveling champions up if you don't reach the next upgrade?
So the short answer is not really. But the longer answer is yes, technically. Technically, the champions do gain damage every time they level up. So whatever their base damage is at level 1, they gain that again when they level up. It's a big deal earlier, like the first 5 or 10 or 15 levels. So right after you get a new champion, if you can like level them up once or twice more, you'll get a big damage increase if you're using them as your main damage. But once you get like 100 levels into them, one more level is only going to be 1% more damage, which isn't really going to move the marker very much. And once you get up to level 1000, one level is like, well, 0.1% damage. So not going to move the needle very well. So not really. I think sticking to that upgrade option is generally what I do. So that would be my suggestion, my pro tip.
All right. Well, why don't we just take one back then, go to question 5.
Sure.
And I mean, I think the answer to this one is pretty obvious. But
yeah, I think so.
Question 5, which came from Happy Leper. It's not going to question that. Did the Epic Games giveaway turn out as good or better than expected?
Yeah, I mean, we were really happy with the response to the Epic Games promotion that we did. Brought a good number of players into the game. I think players were generally pretty happy about it. So yeah, I mean, I was happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy it didn't take all the servers down.
Yes, we did put up a whole bunch of new servers just in case, and they performed pretty well, actually.
Admirably, really.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, one way to put it is we did need a lot of them, so it was good. Yeah, they were needed.
Yeah. No, it was good that we brought a bunch up. And I think it made the play experience also better for existing players as well for while those new servers were up. And we've actually left a bunch of them up. So I know there were some issues around sort of Monday at noon when the challenges reset, and we were seeing the occasional server issue around that time or when events ended. And the fact that we've managed to keep some of those servers up has spread it out and spread out the load. And so that's really good. Surreal asks if they're physical or cloud servers, and they're all cloud servers on the cloud.
But you know, the cloud servers actually are physical somewhere.
Well, kind of.
Well, there's a physical hardware.
Physical
hardware. Yeah, those
Yes.
servers are, which is completely incidental and no one really needs to know, but they're in Virginia. They're in Amazon's server section in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Virginia.
Go ahead and ask question
This
7,
one.
Justin. I think you
Sure,
flagged that
okay.
one for
Here's a
me.
question for you from Pendalf Games. Question, could you add a confirm prompt when you click the clear button for Modron cores? I accidentally clicked it the other day and had to redo my entire level 15 speed core.
Well, shoot.
How is
That
there no
sounds-
confirm button?
That sounds
on
terrible. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to
I'm gonna
blame
highlight
Graham.
that
I'm going to throw
one.
Graham under the bus on that one. He's no longer. Wait, that doesn't sound good. He was a student who's no longer working. No, that still doesn't sound good. Graham actually was with us for about a year. He was one of our longest running co-op students, and he worked, did a ton of work on the Modron stuff, and that is an oversight, 100%. So Justin has highlighted that one. We will have that added to the list to look into. Someone should be able to fix that right quick.
That should be very fast.
Yeah, that's an easy one, and there definitely should be a confirm on a clear on that one.
I have another one here that actually I saw come in, and I noticed that we actually, when we were getting the stats for the scientific notation one.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
So yeah, do you want to? You can.
Sure, I'll ask it for you.
Yeah.
We've got Voodoo Virus Vendetta asks, what percentage of the players that actually play with sound on?
So that is a great question. That's one I've always been curious about as well. So while we were pulling the stats for the scientific versus non-scientific, I also pulled up the number of people who have the sound muted in the game. And while we don't have, because of the way the stats are stored and the fact that we only had a few minutes to spare to kind of try and grab these numbers, we don't have kind of really good numbers on this. But I can tell you that there are about, what is the number here? About 60% more people have the game muted than have more than 25 resets. So, a large number of people mute the music or music and sound immediately or very quickly. I guess out of between the point at which they have one reset or two resets, I guess this number is from. That number is about 33% or so. So yeah, it's pretty common, I think, for people to play with the sound muted. Though I think that with the jukebox that we recently released and those amazing songs from our streams on Tuesday, I think a lot more people are playing with at least some sound on. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's also, I mean, it's kind of a little bit tangential, but I do think that it varies from platform to platform. I think it's much more likely to have your sound on if you're playing on like a console platform where you're just kind of ducking in temporarily and then closing the game again to let it idle, or even on mobile platforms as well, depending on whether you have your phone's sound on all the time.
Yeah, because of course the time you really want the sound off is when you want to put it into the background.
Exactly right.
So.
Yeah.
Plus, people on console often they got a remote with a mute button on it. Not going into the settings is an easier answer. All right, cool. Well, let's do question 8. We're going through these almost in order this time and getting almost all of them.
Almost all of them.
So, Ironuk asks, Nova's discovery doesn't seem to affect DPS shown in the top left, which makes her seem rubbish. Is that really the case?
So we actually talked about the top left DPS number in the last stream a couple of weeks ago. And one thing I mentioned then is that it's kind of an estimation of your DPS. And what that means is that for some abilities, we actually have to go in and sort of set a defined multiplier for them, especially abilities that have something that kind of varies based on, say, whether you're picking up monster hearts and monster brains. Like Discovery. So basically what that means is as soon as you get the ability, it sort of adds to your DPS with a fixed multiplier, and any additional brains or hearts or whatever you get don't necessarily increase that by any more, because we're just kind of using what we think is an average multiplier. Now that works great when we remember to set a multiplier on that. So if Nova's discovery ability actually isn't increasing your DPS at all, even when you just initially unlock it, then that probably means we've got the wrong multiplier in there, and we can go look at that. But what basically, yeah, even if we do have that correct multiplier in there, it won't go up as you get brains or stuff. So it does make it a little challenging, but we didn't want to have anything affect that number up there that wasn't driven directly by a player action. So yeah, like I said last time, if you move champions around, if you add or remove champions, if you unlock new abilities or buff abilities by buying an upgrade or getting to an upgrade level, then we want that to affect the number. But if like the DPS of an ability is controlled by the number of monsters attacking, like a tank, or by the number of brains that Nova's collected, then we don't want those kind of incidental numbers to cause the DPS number to fluctuate wildly based on what's going on. So Nova's not rubbish. She's pretty good, and you should definitely use her.
Cool. I saw another question sneak in here while you were answering that, relative to the previous question, and it's actually a question coming in from Dylan. And Dylan is asking, do we know if the percentage of players muted has gone down since the new soundtrack was added?
Well, I know the answer to this question. No, we don't.
We don't have that number.
We do not have that number.
I would wager that it definitely has. I think the question is, how much has it gone down?
Yeah, I think some players in chat were mentioning that you can set the sound and music numbers to 0%, which then lets you run the jukebox because it has a separate volume. So in that case, you don't even have the game flagged technically as muted. They're just sounds. The sounds are both at 0% volume. So it would be pretty tough, I think, to track down the number to this the answer to this question specifically, because I think we have that historical data, but it would be very challenging to get.
Yeah.
Probably better that we work on bug fixes and new features than track that down.
Okay, not going to disagree on that right now.
I also noticed in chat while we were talking that some people were saying that Mahen makes the DPS number jump all over the place. So that is something we should probably look at, because we don't want that to be happening. Let's see. I got some more questions for you here, Dave.
You can go down.
Here's one from Cassius335, who asks, who says, auto reset is still doing that thing wherein if it resets while minimized, it turns the sound back on, overriding the mute while in background setting. You have to re-minimize it to get the silence back. Is this on the fix list somewhere? It's a really weird bug.
That is, yeah. So I guess first thing on questions like this, one should actually go take a look at the we have a public facing bug list, which you're probably aware of, but certainly we go through that every week and items from that are assigned. So if that's something that that isn't listed there, it should be, but given that it was asked here, I will put this on the list of things for people to take a look at. I'll check in with, but to my knowledge, it is not something on the current fix list. So I am highlighting that. Cool. All right. And here's a question, Justin, that was just one little further bit down there, and that was relative to the multiplayer feature. And they're asking, will multiplayer be cross-platform?
That's a great question. At this point, yeah, I think so. I don't think we have any plans to make it not cross-platform. The one caveat I will put on that is that because various platforms have different sort of requirements for releases and whatnot, that could change, or it's possible that multiplayer could potentially launch and not be available on some platforms, but we will try and be very transparent about that if that is going to be the case, and we will try and bring it to everyone if we unfortunately have to do that. But we will provide more information about all that stuff as we get closer and closer.
Yeah, but it seems most likely that it will be cross-platform.
Yeah,
most likely.
Yeah.
Caveat is until it's actually launched in your hands, we can't guarantee that.
Until we get an email from one of our platform partners at some point, being like, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to do that." And then we're like,
"We've never done that." Oh, well, here's another question that I think we should just follow up with that because it was related to the multiplayer one, and that was this question here from Glacier. They're asking, multiplayer, question mark? How will you balance that some players do scripting?
Yeah, so without getting too much into the details of what the multiplayer feature is, because we haven't really talked about that, it'll be opt-in, so you'll be able to play with the people that you want to play with, and so very much like it's a single player game now, and sort of, you can compare your progress to people who script or cheat or whatever, but it's not really, you're not going to get anywhere doing that because they're obviously using exploits that you're not. So, you can play with the people who are not scripting, and the scripters can play together if they want to. And it's hard to fully answer this question without getting really into the details of what the multiplayer feature is, I think, unless you have a sort of different thought on that.
No, I don't want to. I think it might reveal things, so yeah. All right, you want to jump up to question 12, Justin? I can take a stab at that.
12.
See what I got for an
Sure.
answer.
Yeah. So Henry Lonewind asks, why does the game start full screen and with the chat open? Apparently this started about the time that chat broke.
So the answer to that is it shouldn't. It should start the way you previously left it. If it is, in fact, if it's continuing to open full screen with the chat open, It could be that one of the settings isn't getting saved properly. Like there is a settings file buried away somewhere that if you open a support ticket, that Sean can tell you where to find it if you need to, and clear it out and reset it if that's the issue. But it certainly shouldn't be doing that. It should be starting the way you previously closed it. I would open a ticket on that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let's jump up and keep on going down the list. Sure.
Let's go to Q9. We got a couple of these repeat from the names. They're getting there in. They got them in early. Crongy999 asks, is there a reason the two new variants of the same end stage goal, 550 and 575 respectively, for every patron, rather than getting progressively higher because of the higher charisma requirement? Or is this a bug?
So this is actually a bug. We were looking at, this was brought to my attention today, and I'm not actually sure what happened. The system is supposed to automatically increase the patron requirements there. It is on our list, and I believe we will be bumping up those requirements, but we'll have to look at what's involved in that for players who potentially already completed those and whatnot. So we will be fixing that, and that is not intended. It's always intended that the patron variants have the higher goals.
All right. And we'll just go down to question 10.
Sure.
Asked by, I have this tendency to want to read it as General Kinra.
The generals are back.
The generals are back.
Generals.
Yeah, it's funny, actually, because I noticed going through the previous questions that someone had asked, can I be a general?
That's true.
I
don't remember who that was.
All that funny if you didn't watch the previous stream. That said, Kinra VIP, Kinra VIP, nope, forget it, is asking, is there an ultimate level number and area number, or do they keep on going ad infinitum?
This is a great question for new players. So in terms of a max level for all the champions, there's no specific max level for champions. Each champion has its own kind of soft cap. So that is the level where they stop getting upgrades. And generally, once you stop getting upgrades, their damage stops going up in any appreciable way. For the reasons I actually mentioned earlier for someone's earlier question about whether there's advantage to leveling up champions if you don't use the upgrade flag. There is a soft cap for champions, but there's no hard cap for them. And for areas, there is actually a hard cap on the areas, which we generally set far beyond what you can get to through normal means. Before you can even get to that area through normal play, the monsters will just one-shot you, or you will not be able to even tickle them. There are sometimes, once in a while, when we get a little bit of a bug in the game, it's possible to push a little bit further. But in general, there is a kind of max area that you can kind of get to legitimately, though there's some variation on that. And then there's the one where you just get there, you'll just get kicked out.
Right. All right. Now, there's a question here that followed that, and I was looking it over, and we tend to get this question fairly regularly, and it's about I'm trying to glean a little bit of context from it here, and this is a question that was asked by Herkwork, and it's asking about the there's a request for full screen borderless mode, and I swear the Unity export says that's the mode that the full screen is. So I mean, if it's not behaving like a full screen borderless, Justin, do you know if it behaves like a full screen borderless?
I do not know. I have only played in windowed mode, and yeah, we get this question all the time, and I have no idea what's going on there, because
it shouldn't be like I don't believe it changes the resolution mode. I think actually we would notice if it did that, because all your icons would change places and everything, one of those change places, and then you would, yeah. Don't you hate it when games do that? Okay, cool. Anyway, so I mean, I'm fairly confident that borderless full screen mode is borderless full screen mode, but I will, for my own sanity, check that. But this question actually came in two parts, and the second part of that question was about scaling the UI down, and the question around that, like there is a bit of an issue with that, and that's that it actually gets to the point where things don't, like the text no longer fits in the available spaces. The fonts crush down below the maximum allowable size, and depending on how we've set them up, and we haven't set all of them up like up to do this, but many of the text boxes that have variable length will get into this state where it actually starts to scale the contents. So because we have variable length descriptions on some of the things like the quests, like the quest descriptions, it'll try to use like the most optimal size font for readability. And if it doesn't fit, it will then try the next size down. And if that doesn't fit, it will try the next size down below that. And it does this for about 6 options. And if it runs out on the last option, it actually will scale it, like literally like a scale, like, like a Photoshop kind of scale. And that looks just hideous. And so the question sort of around this UI scale is that at what point do we say we don't want to go beyond this because it's actually going to make the game look really bad, and do we want that to be something that we're allowing players to set? And I can definitely understand the feeling of like, well, I've decided that I don't care about that. I want to set it smaller because I'm trying to fit it on a screen that's lower resolution or some other reason. And so I'm not really, like, I feel like we've kind of landed on this, well, there's a minimum size, and it's a minimum size that the game doesn't look bad. And so certainly, as this player has pointed out, they manually set their scale down by changing it in that aforementioned setting file. And so, yeah, it's a question of whether or not we want to be able to scale things down to a point where things don't look good. And I think it potentially it's something we could do with a big fat warning that says, listen, you are going to make this experience not so good. But then unfortunately that experience, if people do set it to that, does get associated with it, and then they forget that they agreed that was the experience they were going to get. And so, I mean, it sort of lulls me to say it's sort of like having Apple's mentality, which I know is my favorite company. So that's kind of the questions around it, as far as like the thoughts on why we don't let you crush the UI down to something that's unreadable. I don't know, Justin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Not really beyond what I think you've covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'll check that full screen borderless mode, but I don't know that we want to put an option in the UI to scale below 75%. But if you find the option in the setting and lower it to whatever works for you, I think that at that point you've gone out of your way to you know what you've done, and you're not gonna associate that with the game. At least I hope not. Cool. All right. Question 13. This one is for you, Justin. There's no way.
Pronounce it.
I'm just going to spell it out. It's XPLTVDLTD. Expletive. Yeah. Is that expletive deleted? Is that what that is?
It does look that way.
I think that's what that is.
There you go. You did it.
I did it. All right.
Yay.
Expletive deleted would like to know, is there a feature that allows you to see how long you've been running the current adventure?
So, kind of. The answer to this question is there is.
We know
but only once you reset the adventure. So when you reset, one of the things that shows up on the stat screen is how long you were on the adventure. So we don't display it until you reset, which isn't very handy when you're on the adventure. But once you reset, it is, I believe it's actually the top stat on the reset screen. So yes and no. There's no feature that shows you how long you've been running the current adventure, because by the time you can see it, that's no longer your current adventure.
All right. Question 15. EOGain asks, EOGain10 asks, blessings when? Also, are feats broken?
So I think we got this question last week too. Well, we got the question bit, the first bit. And blessings are actually, I believe blessings are designed for all of the permanent campaigns up to tier 6 or 7. We just haven't gotten to the point of finding a good place to slot them in. So that's definitely something we want to do, hopefully in the next quarter. And then the feats broken one, I'm actually not sure what you're asking about. I don't know if something has happened in the last update to just break the effects of feats in general, or if there's some specific feats that are broken. But that is a great thing to pass into Sean. So just go ahead and if you can open a ticket with some details about that, we can take a look at your specific issues.
Cool. All right. See if we can get through these so that we get more questions done. So next question is from OG17, and they'd like to know, attack type icons are now all using the same icon as the character's base attack. Is this a visual bug, or are they actually changing the attack types?
So yeah, I highlighted this because I'm not sure what's going on with that. I don't think there was any intention to change any ultimate icons or any attack types or anything like that. And I'm honestly not even sure what we would have changed recently that could have caused any sort of visual bug like that. But this is one that I wanted to flag so I can highlight it and check in with the team and see what is going on there.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Seems like a bug, but
does sound buggy.
We're not changing the attack types of the ultimates.
No.
That would be a major design balance change.
Yes, speaking of major design balance
that,
changes.
Right? Or you should know that. All right. Sure. So Mike Baldy asks, yesterday's patch included a fix for tank health share abilities to work as described. This ended up being a big change for some players. Some people are being forced back to picking between Ayla, Tyrell, or Briv as the only 3 viable tanks in order to make the same or anywhere close to the same amount of progress as before the fix. Are you guys planning on adding some future buffs to bring health tank back into line the way it was before the fix so that more tanks are viable at higher levels?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So the fix that Mike is mentioning here is that prior to this patch, what happened was if you had multiple tanks in your formation, every tank has an ability to share 25% of their max health with all the other champions in the formation. And what was happening was this was kind of stacking in a really weird way with multiple tanks. So the second tank would increase everyone's health by 20%, 25% of their health, plus that 25% bonus. And the third tank would do the same, plus that 25% bonuses, and fourth, and so on and so forth. So the numbers actually got out of whack from where they were intended to be. And tank health is something that's a very, very bit of a very tough to balance, a bit of a tightrope walk in terms of getting it just right. And so I think this forced a little bit of a swing in the tank health. I think they may have also been applying it to themselves. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it was applying in ways that were not intended. So what we did is we just fixed that, so it was applying in the way that it was intended. And now we are looking at it and making sure that we haven't broken anything too badly in terms of where people can progress. It was kind of always intended that as you get higher and higher, you need more and more either tanks or more healing in order to kind of stay alive. And so if that's happening, then that's good. But this I think I'm just watching the chat here as we go, and I think that one of the things that this is perhaps highlighting is that some of the champions have abilities that are somewhat broken in terms of being able to tank indefinitely or for long periods of time, like Tyrell's Bite, Briv's Healing, etc. And someone's saying that the tank health share ability was also interacting with the Modron health nodes in a poor way, which is true. We noticed that as well. So I guess what we've done is we've kind of pulled it back, and what we will do at this point is look at if we need to add anything back in there, or look at if we need to make adjustments to some of the tanks to bring them up to speed. So yes, we are planning to watch that and see what kind of changes we can do in the future to make that a little bit better. Let's see here. Let's do a question for you, Dave.
Yeah, we got a bunch of
I've
blue
just been
ones
talking
down
for
here.
a while.
Yeah, that's okay.
Ooh, look at how blue they are. Let's go to this question here from Babylon Ranger 2261.
You get all the easy names.
Question. I've sometimes noticed that the gem find on background parties is often wildly off. For example, 9 gems over 100 levels, with no indication that this is wrong when I later check on my gem total or the journal. Any chance this will be looked into?
So Babylon Ranger, this is true. We do see this. It's a report we get fairly frequently, and it is literally just a display issue, which is why you see when you go to your journal that you actually got the correct amount. Now this, well, I guess if I knew exactly what it was, then we'd have a fix on it. I know it's something to do with the way the offline progress, specifically the Modron, the multi-party progress is aggregated over sessions, and for whatever reason it ends up getting reset somewhere along the aggregation, and then only the most recent one gets put in, and so while the other ones did occur and they did get added correctly, the aggregation has reset and you just see the most recent one. So it is on the list. I know that there are a number, there's a big list of Modron related things that are going to be looked into. I know development has been sort of up and down in terms of how much time they've had to look at that. I know Peter has been for a very long time now trying to get focus on some of those Modron issues. And it actually sounds like we should be getting some more time. Actually, even right now, I know Alex was spending some of his time on that because we're waiting on some localization related, what's the word I'm looking for?
Stuff.
So yes, he was otherwise completed a task for that and waiting on localizers to get some actual localized text to him. So he's got time for bugs, and so he's been doing bugs. So I know some of those items are getting done. So
do you know, just to clarify on this question here, I guess, is the bug that you're not actually getting those gems, or is the bug just that the display when you return to the party isn't displaying the gems
it's
that you
the
got?
display issue, right? Because if you the
Right.
rest of the question says no indication that this was wrong later in the journal.
Right.
So the journals, so unless I'm reading that wrong, the journal is showing the gems correctly. It's that welcome back dialogue that says you only got 9 when actually you got, well, that sounds like that was just the last one. Like that's just one boss worth.
Yes. That's funny because I know when we were working on Modern Automation, I fixed this bug. So
sure, you did.
So
you fixed
I
it.
did. I fixed it and I tested it and it was working great. And I guess something that got committed after that must have.
Yeah, and I think sort of related to that, there's another question that was asked a little bit further down by Yilman Dermaz, who says that is there work towards fixing progress stopper issues of the core of bugs of cores. So assumedly that's the Modron, the multi-party stuff, and the previous answer applies, and that is that I know that it's on Peter's list. He's been trying to get time to work on it. It is something that's sort of top of mind for bugs, because it has such a large impact. Yeah, like the progress stoppers are hugely impactful, and so the problem, of course, is that these bugs tend to be harder to track down. They're harder bugs, which is why we haven't fixed them yet, unfortunately. So anyway,
yeah, let's go down to this question here, I guess.
Question 31?
No, 30.
30, all right.
It's above 31. Our Lace asks, or says, patrons have a champion requirement. Can we have a champion counter somewhere, like with loot levels? So, for example, if you need 20 champions to unlock Mert, you could say 15 out of 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we're going to have anywhere we have a display that says requires X champions or X anything, that we should put next to it how many you have. It feels like an oversight. We should be doing that for sure.
We should definitely be doing that.
So I was going to tag that one to put on the list because I don't know that that's come up very frequently anywhere else. Cool. If you want to do the next one too, 31?
Yeah, sure. So 31 here from Giant Dwarf. It's actually a two-parter, three-parter kind of.
Three-part?
It's 2 questions. It says, stat feats used to work without needing a restart, as I recall. What happened? So I guess that implies they don't work without restarting, which is very odd. And they also ask, can we please have feats added to save formation? Sorry, my tongue is melting.
All right, well, I'll answer the first part of that, and you can answer the second part. But I think the first part is Yeah, I remember us specifically making it so that stats weeks definitely worked without a restart because, well, they should, and obviously you'd apply them so that you could start an adventure or something that had an attribute requirement. So so they should. That's definitely a bug, and we'll put that on the bug list. I will again highlight that in a we should flag this for future checking.
Sure.
Justin, do you want to ask or answer the second half of that?
Can we have feats in saved formations? So I don't know, have we been asked this before?
I don't recall.
I feel like we probably have.
It does sound like something that would get asked for.
I think it'd be a cool quality of life buff, and so I might ask Peter if he can look into speccing out what that would take. I know the save formation system has a couple of different versions in the game, and I know there are still even some issues with the current save formation system. I know, just some stuff around like mode run cores and saving specializations and whatnot. So I think there's definitely some improvements we could make to the save formation stuff, and so I think we probably can at some point.
Cool. All right, I got one here that I've colored that not quite the right color, but
is that the one right below?
Yeah, this one here.
It's a very different color from all the other ones.
I know. Bad aim on the color picker here. So Miss Vin asks, and the reason I put this in here because there are two parts to the answer to this question, and one of them is a bug, and the other one is we'll read the question. Is there a way, or will there ever be a way to disable the game stream notifications once you've acknowledged it? I don't need 3 notifications for a stream, especially if I'm watching it already. And actually, now that I've read it out loud, I feel like I actually read that wrong, the first portion of it. And I thought actually, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Justin, but I thought it was supposed to not notify you again if you'd clicked on it and like accepted it. Like if you'd been like, yeah, I want to see that. But I know there's been much discussion around how these should work, and so
yeah, no, I agree that if you kind of go to the stream or you close it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that we do link the 3, or depending on the stream, it's either I think 2 or 4 notifications. I know we do link those together so they know that they're from the same show. But I don't know what we do when you hit like the close button or when you go to it. Yeah, I mean this is a big discussion point within the company of sort of or within the team of what is, how many notifications are too many, how many are too few, and we know that we do get like it is kind of annoying, but we do get more people come into the stream and hanging out when we do more notifications than when we do less. We have done a bunch of testing on that. And so it's one of those things where it can be kind of annoying, but in general, the good outweighs the bad on that.
Yeah, for sure. For every player that's like, damn it, why are you sending this again? Someone is like, oh, actually, I will check that out. So it's a balance, and it's definitely
a balance. It's one we're always kind of reviewing and looking at as well. We do kind of monthly reviews of what's going on with the streams and the notifications and all that stuff. So definitely something we're paying attention to.
Yeah, and just looking at the chat right now, I can see people, a question of like, why do you sell us over and over again? And someone else being like, I don't actually mind. So, in case they accidentally click no, which is something that you can do. So, as well as you might maybe like, not right this second, I'm in the middle of something, and then, half an hour later, oh, actually, no, I'm good, I'm done now. So, I'll come see you guys bumble through some questions and tell terrible jokes.
I think people's mileage may vary on that. And so, yeah, it's a balance.
Okay, so Justin, I'm just looking at the time, and I am seeing that we are really running low. So we need to pick a few of these. And
want to go for another hour?
We probably could if we were going to get through all the questions. So
no, we got stuff to do.
It's true.
Okay. Let's see here.
There's one I wanted to touch on, which was 34, and I don't know. So
sure.
Jen. No, they've shortened it. It's
General, rack it up.
All right, General, rack it up. Reporting for duty, or at least for questioning. Is there a way to view your champions without entering a game?
Right. So, like from the can't choose campaign screen, I assume is what we're referring to here.
Is that what they're asking? Well, then
I think so.
I misinterpreted the question because I thought he
there
was
is a
asking like
question.
external to the game, like through a
Yes.
website or through a portal of some sort.
It could very well be the question. I took a game to mean like entering an adventure as opposed to the game, but English is
fair
what
enough.
it is.
Well,
So
the only thing
it could go either way.
I wanted to hang something on that, and that is that I know there are certain developers on the team who would love to make that a reality where you can view your champions outside of the game. And so, while we have no concrete plans for that at this time, I know there are people who are championing that. No pun intended. Cool. All right.
There are also some community tools I think that do a pretty good job of that as well.
There are, but you have to put your user ID and hash into them, and we're not.
We do not condone that at all.
Bad things can happen, and you do that. That's the keys to your account, which means that you can see your stuff, but they also could potentially be, using up your stuff, playing your game. So you got to watch that.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Let's see. I want to do one more question here. I'm just looking at kind of what things are kind of quick. I don't know. Do you have one here that you're kind of drawn to?
I mean, we've got a really quick one, and that was we've answered this one before. We can answer it again, and that is how many developers are working on the game?
Oh man, do we have to count again?
I think so. Remember?
Let's see. We got there's Peter and Jarrett and Jacob and Alex. And sometimes myself,
and sometimes me.
You. So that's 6 developers.
And sometimes Mark.
Once in a while, Mark. Less often, Mark, these days. So that's 6 or 7 developers. Really, just sort of 4 core developers, and then Dave and I help out if there's some fire going on.
You bet.
And then how many artists do we have on it? We've got
5,
Alexis
4.
and 4 other artists.
Yeah.
4/5. Sometimes Michelle works on it again now that she's back. And then we've got our marketing team and our community team, which most of you probably know pretty well. Todd and Lauren were just on the last stream, and Dylan's on a stream all the time, and Margaret pops up from time to time.
And Sean, don't forget Sean.
And there's Sean flipping those pancakes.
Oh, and answering tickets. He doesn't just
and answering tickets.
He doesn't even flip the pancakes. He just watches the pancakes get flipped.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's all the kind of other people that help out in the office here. And then there's some other people who work on the older games as well. So I don't know. If we add up all those numbers, somehow we get to a company with 30 people working at it. So hooray.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we are really running short on time here. So let's get through the outro so that we don't run over into the next block. Although I'm not actually sure if there's something following us. But anyway, so that is everything that we have time for.
If we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You'll have another opportunity, as we will be live again at the same time next week, I think. Yes, next week we will be live. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods, Jay and Sasha. I think Jay was modding today, so thank you very much, as well as the whole team that helps out.
Yeah, and of course, we want to thank all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, and enjoying the game, because, of course, without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
Yep, we'd have to do something else.
Yep, and that's that. Yeah. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
I'm so hot right now.